I decided to make a short tutorial on the Ecotec engines. A lot of people seem to be scared of them. Everybody's always terrified that they're going to be blown up or junk or whatever. And usually the only thing that ever happens with them, as you probably know, is the timing chain. Unless there's a hole in the block or rod knock, they're easily savable. And as you can see, I've got one right here. This is the 06 in the back. This takes the, it's got the one coil that sits across here. This one's actually got rod knock, but the head's good. The valves aren't bent. Good oil pan. You have good timing cover. Good valve cover. You know, a few good parts on there that I can save. And then here's an 08 HHR, which we're going to make the video about. Has the 07 08 only non-VVT 2.2 Ecotec, which I have another one of those right there. What's different about them is the valve cover is different. This cam is different, and it's got individual coils. It also has, there's a cam sensor right here. I don't know if you can see that or not, but my fingers aren't right here. There's a cam sensor there. And that's really all that's different about them. But when you pop these motors apart, the biggest thing you're looking for, especially after the chain has jumped, like this one has, you want to look and see if any of these rocker arms are loose. Now, they float in there. There's nothing that holds them in place other than the tension of the spring and the lobe on the cam. So if your valves are bent, you'll be able to wiggle these or move them, which I cannot. And in my experience with them, it's always going to be your number one cylinder that bends. I had a head here. I had one car here before. Everything was good, and I was able to just barely wiggle these rocker arms, and I thought it was probably okay until I fired it up, and it was misfiring on cylinder one because it wasn't building the right compression. And then I ended up tearing the head off and flipped it over, and you could see that the valves weren't closing all the way. I could peck them with a hammer to get them to close down, but they wouldn't close down automatically on spring tension because they had a little bend to them. So now, of course, you know, everybody learns from their mistakes. I know that if you can move these rocker arms any bit at all, then you've probably got a bent valve. And none of these move. Now, what happens to this one is, and you probably can't see it, but the plastic tensioner bar, actually I've got a new set right here so I can show you. Let me get them cam gears out of there. I took them up there with me. This is a new set. I just had some stuff in there. But this plastic tensioner bar right here always breaks. That tensioner on the back, which is this guy right here. Let me go ahead and open that up. Just 1 second, guys. Sorry about the camera quality. I know it's not the greatest, but your tensioner here, they'll get a little slack to them, and then lack of oil changes dries up that plastic rod. That thing snaps, and when it does, you get just enough movement out of the chain to let it jump a tooth, which is exactly what happened to this one. And you'll usually find this rod about 4 or 5 pieces in the bottom of the timing cover. But this is not a hard thing to do. Now, I worked at a big shop for a long time, and this job, around $1,200 range, is what it would cost to have a big shop fix this. Now, you can do it yourself, like I do, or find somebody that, like me, that, you know, is a little less than a big corporate shop, doesn't have a lot of overhead, and you can buy that kit for, I think I paid $130 for that, because it doesn't have the cam gears. The only reason I didn't get the cam gears is because I inspected these cam gears first, and I looked at the teeth, and there's no shaving to them. There's nothing wrong with them that I can see, and I have extras anyway. But realistically, somebody that's never done it before, 4-ish hours, I would say 4 hours, at $130 on that kit. Plus, of course, you have to drain the oil, so you're good, whatever oil you like there. $30 on an oil change kit, and it's not too bad. Now, what it takes to do these, the cam bolts are an 18, and these are not torque to yield, I don't think. I'm pretty sure they're not. So they're reusable. Your kit always comes with this new brace here. You know, you get a new chain. But the biggest thing is, so your Cobalts and your Malibus and stuff, you don't have all this stuff in the way. So with the HHR, I got to go a little extra to take the washer fluid jug out of here so that I can get down to the motor mount here. Take those 3 bolts out, you know, support the motor with a jack and a wooden block because it is an aluminum oil pan. And then you have 3 18 bolts. You can see one right there. There's one there, and there's 2 on this side. Let me get a flashlight. Sorry guys, it's kind of temperatures dropped around here. But anyway, so there, now you can see at least the 1 bolt there by the flashlight beam, and then your other one right there. And like I said, there is one more. Is it on this side or is it on the other side? No, it's on the other side. I'm sorry. So you take those out, and then you've got maybe, I can't remember how many timing cover bolts are, but they're all 10s except for the 113 that's directly below this bolt right here. That's just, I don't know what that bolt is. It's not important, but you got a 13 down there, and then you have to have your T50, I think, to take this plug out, which is that guy right there. And harmonic balancer comes off. It's a 21, so you got to jack it up. You got to take the right front wheel off, and the plastic here. There's a plastic plate in there that just covers where the harmonic balancer goes. You can see the harmonic balancer there. It's a 21 on the bolt, and it just slides off. You grab it with your hand. You might sometimes have to use a pry bar to wiggle it some, but they are not pressed on. So you can pretty much do this job with a basic socket set. You get the timing cover off, you know, drain the oil, get the timing cover off, you know, motor mount timing cover. You know, well, it's motor mount, then harmonic balancer, then the timing cover. And then you've got everything exposed. And then you come up here and you take these bolts out here on the cams to pop those discs. Don't drop them in there. They are a bear to get back out. And if you drop them in, they slide down in that slot right there that you can see where the head gasket is. The 2 little round tabs there, part of the head gasket. Anyway, take the bolt out, slide the gears out, and then you drop the chain from the top down to the bottom. Now you got to walk over, I don't know if you can see it, right there by those 2 tabs. There's kind of a lip type thing. You got to walk it over. Usually a long flathead screwdriver. Same thing when you drop the new one in, just drop it from the top, hang it. I like to put this bracket back and hang the chain over it to get it down there and around the crank sprocket. And then you can, of course, don't ever forget the oiler port, which, if you give me a second, I'll find it in this kit. So they all come with this new oiler port here. It's just an updated design from factory. It's got a better spray nozzle on it. And all the information you need right there. As you can see, it says oil nozzle. The enclosed oil nozzle has been redesigned to provide higher flow rate, you know, blah, blah, whatever. So realistically, it only takes a couple hours. Put it back together with the chain in, and you fill it with oil and fire it up. The biggest thing that a lot of people are scared of is, how do you do the timing? Let me go ahead and put my flashlight down and I'll show you that real quick. So, go over here to the lawnmower seat. So if you look at this chain here, see you've got 1 black cog, 2 black cogs, and a gold one. So if I remember correctly, the gold is the intake, and the closest black to it is the exhaust, and then your other black lines up with a dot on the crank. Now, if you look at these cam gears I just chucked over here on the floor, when you look at them, they are toothed, so they can only fit on the cam one way. You can't mess it up. They only go on there one way. There's no possible way, no possible other way to put them on than without destroying something. And you'll know, because when you take the chain, my phone to do this, and when I get calls, it just cuts the camera off. So anyway, like I was saying, with these cam gears, there is only one possible way that it can fit on there. Now, you may be worried about, well, you know, there's an exhaust side and an intake side. Well, there is. But still, these cams are both the exact same, or these cam gears are both the exact same cam gear. It does not matter which one goes on which side at all. It doesn't. Because they both line up on the cam only one way, and the way they line up depends on whether it's the intake cam or the exhaust cam. So your timing is always correct. It doesn't matter. You put this on, you can take the exhaust cam off the exhaust. You can take the exhaust cam gear off the exhaust cam and put it on the intake gear, or the intake cam, and everything will still line up and turn just fine. Now, obviously, intake side, of course, right? Exhaust side, not hard. So when you line these up, the colored tooth sets like that. So the tooth will go into the chain like that, just like that. I mean, absolutely just like that. So that's the gold tooth, obviously, but I need to take it out of the package so I can remember which one's which. But it'll line up like that, and same on the other side of the cam with the intake side. It'll line up, you know, if it's the black one, it'll line up the exact same. You want the hash mark between the two pins. That's how it works. And then down on the crank sprocket, which I don't think I have one of those laying around. I'd have to take one of these engines apart. But there's just a dot on it. Now, sometimes, some of these engines, they put like a weird little thin washer plate type thing. I mean, it's paper thin. And you'll pull the timing cover off, and you'll be looking, and it'll just look like this. No dots anywhere. And you're like, what the hey? Check and make sure it doesn't have that little thin paper plate on it, because there is a dot on the crank sprocket somewhere along there, and that dot, much like these hash marks, lines up right in between the pins. So all you got to do is pull your number one spark plug out, right? Get it up on intake or on the combustion stroke at the top dead center, and your dot will line up. If you're looking at, so here's the front of this engine. If you're looking at it, your dot will almost always line up kind of bottom right corner, just right there. So when you hang your chain on it, you know what? I might be able to show you inside there what that crank sprocket looks like. Kinda. I can see the dot, but you can't see it. But you line up your chain on the crank sprocket first, and then you loop it up. You do the exhaust side second, so you line it up on its little mark, which will land right about here. And then you put the intake cam gear into the chain, hold it up against the cam here, then take your big wrench, I use an adjustable, and you turn the cam until that gear lines up on the cam, okay? It's the easiest way to get the chain on there. You turn the cam until the gear falls into it, because like I showed you, it only goes in one way. So once you get that in there, do not forget to torque these down. I think they're 22 foot-pounds or something. I've got the paper around here somewhere. So you make sure you torque these down, and you make sure that these cams don't roll anywhere. You want to keep your wrench locked in on one of these cams so that it won't jump, because you don't have any tension on the chain yet. So then you take your tensioner here, and this guy, it slides in. Well, you'll have replaced your tensioner bar and your guide bar first. So get the chain in. Before you put the intake cam on, you put the tensioner bar up on the tensioner side, which I think you can see it's underneath that chain right there. You can kind of see it under the chain. Kind of hard to see, but it is there. You put that in, and then you'll slide the guide bar up, bolt it in place, and then you take your actual tensioner here, and it comes into the motor right back, bring it past the loom here, right back here. I'm gonna see if I can't See it right there, the big rusty bolt looking thing. So you just unbolt that and you bolt the new one in. See if I can get my flashlight here. So then you take that one out, and then you take your new one, you push it in there, and you bolt it in. Now, the old tensioners, you had to take like a screwdriver or a pry bar, and you had to stick it down in there on top of the chain, essentially, or on top of the guide bar under the chain, and you just had to kind of bop it nice and hard, and it would release this. Well, these new ones, you don't have to do that. You fire it up, and the first time that chain comes around with the oil pressure shooting into the oil hole right there, it sets the tensioner automatically. So you don't have to do that anymore. You just put it together and you fire it up. Now, once everything's down, tight, and together, you can put your timing cover back on, motor mount, valve cover, plugs, coils, and fire it up. And, well, you want to put your oil in first, of course. But if you look here, here's where all your good stuff is. So your originals were like a 2-piece or a 3-piece, and then you had this one, and you see how both of them have low oil holes. And the tensioners, the actual rod itself, were like, it wasn't one big piece, where the new one it is. The new one, this is the one you had to bop. So this one is the one that you always want to make sure is in your kit, because the oil hole is moved, it's got better oil flow, a little bit stronger springs in it or what have you, and it's self-setting. First time you fire the car up, it sets it. And I've never, ever had an issue with them. Now, I'm just kind of doing this video right now to offer a little bit of help to some of you guys that are trying to do this at home. You know, the wife's car, the mom's car, the daughter's car, son's car, whoever's car, your car stops running, and you crank it, and it has that no compression sound, and you take it to a shop, and they're like, $1,500. I want $1,500, and I'll put your car back on the road. If you have a basic socket set and a jack, and you're confident in doing this job, it doesn't take much to do. It's not hard. Like I said, $150, $200 max between the oil and the chain set, and you're good to go. I like to put new spark plugs in. I only run AC Delcos and GM motors. Every time I put any other kind of plug other than an AC Delco and a GM motor, they just don't run right. They misfire. Everybody's got their own opinion. I'm sure a lot of you guys are laughing. I use auto lights, but that's fine. Yes, they're cheaper. I understand when you're on a budget, you got to do what you got to do, but I am an AC Delco man when it comes to GMs, and that's just how I am. That's how I always have been, and that's probably how I always will be. But these motors are not hard to do. Now, I've been thinking about, I should probably go ahead and make a video of going through all the steps and taking this motor down, apart, putting the chain set back in it, and, doing all that. Quite honestly, I don't have a second set of hands to help me try to run the camera and hold this while I tighten this and all that. I don't have that on me right now, but I can easily, if I get enough likes on this video, enough comments where people want to see exactly how to do it, I will take this engine apart right here. I'll pull the valve cover and I'll pull the timing cover, and I'll show you what's inside and how it works. I don't really expect a lot of traction on this video. I know there's probably a lot of videos out there on the Ecotec engines. I'm just trying to help the average Joe fix his car for less than $300, when a shop is wanting to charge $1,200 to $1,500. So that's going to be it for this video. I've got to get this thing put together and pulled out of the shop. I am rebuilding a 64 Impala for Power Tour next year. So I may put some videos up on me doing that. if you guys decide you want to see that. This is a new channel. Like, subscribe, and the more likes, comments, and subscribers I have, the more content I will put out on your basic everyday repairs and doing stuff like the 64 Impala, metalwork and custom fabrication and, just everything that comes in picking up a car that is pretty much in boxes and putting it back together and making it what you want it to be. So like I said, like, subscribe, throw a comment down. Y'all want to see more and see how these Ecotecs work? I'll show you. Have a good day.